Hey guys, and welcome to the first day of our competitive camp. I appreciate if you guys are joining us from our session last Thursday. Hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate you joining us today as well. Hopefully, you can make the next session on this coming Thursday. Today, if you're not familiar with it already, today's topic is the importance of communication and playing around neutral objectives. So, going to be the same thing as last Thursday, pretty much. We're going to do a little bit of a little lesson from something that we put together, and then we're going to actually jump into some in-game things and try to show how they're actually applied from a practical standpoint in the game. Following that up, we'll of course do some Q&A. Have an outstanding question from last session that I wanted to make sure that I got answered as well regarding the meta currently. So we'll definitely make sure that we get to that as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into things. So, one thing that I want to talk about is, I get asked by a lot of people what the importance of esports is just outside of the game. And I think that there's a lot of transferable and soft skills development that people can take with them, meaning that no matter if you're playing League of Legends or if you're playing Valorant, which happy closed beta Valorant day to everybody, or if you're playing any other game, or if you're going and you're doing a real life job, there's all these different great things that you learn through esports that you can take with you. And so, of course, we're going to talk a lot about communication today. I think that that is a big piece because, again, it doesn't matter if you're in the workplace or if you're in a team game, whatever it may be, being able to communicate effectively is going to help take you a long way in life, no matter what you're handling. So, jumping into it, I think that there's this misconception that, hey, as long as I'm talking, that's communication. And that's what I always like to differentiate on is that ineffective communication is you're just talking. You're just saying something to say something versus what we're going to get into here in a little bit being effective communication. So some examples of ineffective communication. Expletive, there's plenty of them, right? Whatever. I died. That's not really effective communication. It's not really communicating anything to your teammates that's helping them understand the current scenario so that they can make good decisions off of that. There's no strategic value, nothing. Same thing as far as flaming or being toxic to your team goes. All that really does, unfortunately, is brings the team morale down, hurts people's feelings, puts them down, so on and so forth. And it causes all of these frustrations amongst the team that it's not really going to help you go forward. If you go and you notice, maybe somebody else on your team being toxic, or maybe you're having a really rough day and you're the one that's exhibiting that behavior, most likely you're not going to get a positive outcome out of that game that you really want. So just try and reel that back in, or try and help your teammate who's exhibiting that behavior maybe reassess things to help them reel themselves back in, and most likely that's going to change things in your favor by trying to mitigate that. Beyond that is strategies based on emotion and frustration. So gaming, especially League of Legends, is a very tactical, strategic based game. And so basing your decision making based on emotions like, oh, that guy just killed me, or oh, they just won that team fight, I'm really frustrated, I'm going to make the call to just go in no matter what. That kind of communication, those kinds of strategies are typically not going to be an optimal scenario because you're not thinking logic based, you're tilted, right? And so you're kind of thinking out of turn, and you've lost sense of the big picture as to what you should be doing. But I have a little clip that I want to show you guys real quick that, let's see. Sorry, I got a little clip that I want to show you guys that it actually doesn't deal with any of those things that we just covered. It deals with a miscommunication, and this is actually from the play-ins last year at Worlds. And so what you'll notice is I'm going to play the clip through, and you can hear everything, you can watch everything, and then I'm going to kind of pause it and rewind it, and we can go ahead and talk through it.
Outside of the map, so closer. Maybe he makes a play, but he has no ward to hop with because he still has the Herald and not a trinket.
Oh, Goku, though, taking a lot more damage in this exchange. Lost chapter.
So that's awkward.
That is awkward. That is very uncomfortable. So let's talk through this real quick. you can hear them say, and again, I know that this is kind of the more competitive, the more advanced side of things. So if I lose anything in the explanation, please make sure to ask me to expound upon it in the Q&A, because I want to make sure that everybody's following along. So Lee Sin is obviously sitting here looking for a gank on the Syndra and trying to coordinate with the LeBlanc.
Side of the map, so closer. Maybe you
Sitting
explain,
in
but
the
he has no
ward, or
ward
sitting
to
in the
hop
brush,
with
as
because
you
he
can
still
hear the
has the
announcer
Herald.
say. Still has the Herald, so he can't ward hop his Lee Sin. So he starts to channel his back as if the play is basically dead, as he's just going to recall and reset. Unfortunately, what happens is it looks like there was some miscommunication between his teammate with the LeBlanc. The LeBlanc goes in, lands a really good root on the Syndra, and so unfortunately what happens is he's trying to flash, and he's trying to W towards the LeBlanc to be able to finish the gank and to be able to actually kill the Syndra, or at least get the flash blown. Well, unfortunately what happens, as you can see, the LeBlanc uses her W again, snaps back, and it ends up being, all for naught. Basically, the Lee Sin wastes his flash. They get no kill. They get no summoners out of the enemy. And it's just kind of an awkward play to go through because of just poor communication and miscommunication based on the team. And so that's also another example of ineffective communication. So with that, we can kind of transfer back to the presentation. Let's talk about effective or strategic communication. So examples of that effective communication would be the opposite of what we just saw, right? So planning out your early positioning or your invade, we can kind of, and again, we're going to kind of go through some of these examples whenever we go into the game. But planning out your early positioning or your invade, planning out a gank, coordinating with your teammate. Hey, I want to go in for this gank. Can we commit? Can we actually execute on it instead of having summoners blown? Discussing your route as a jungler. Now, if you guys joined us last session, as you know, I play jungle. Lee Sin is my favorite champion. But always communicating your jungle route helps everybody in the game. So if you are a jungler, if you are watching this, try to do that. Try to think about, hey, what's their team composition look like? What is ours? How can I establish the most effective route? Let me tell my teammates that so that they understand what they can expect from me as a jungler. Am I going to be able to actually help and assist in their lane early? Or am I going to, are they going to be all on their own for a little while? Because that's going to affect how they're able to play around that. So really good information. Beyond that, target calling, right? So whenever you go into a team fight, especially in solo queue, I think everybody has these expectations of grandeur and expectations of, everybody's going to be on the same page and everybody's going to know exactly who to go on in a team fight. No, nobody knows, especially in solo queue, nobody ever knows, what the other person's thinking. So trying to convey that information, hey, their carry's really fed. This is the only person that we need to look to go on. If we can't actually go on that person, then we don't need to try to engage a team fight because it's just going to end up poorly for us if we're engaging on somebody else. Conveying vision positions for neutral objectives. We're going to get into neutral objectives here in a bit. Vision plays a big piece in being able to actually coordinate and execute on neutral objectives pretty well. Same thing as a second ago. We have another clip for you guys that I want to take y'all through. This one's a little bit longer. This is a clip that it's from MSI a few years ago, and it's TSM versus G2. And whenever this clip came out, it's always been one of my favorite clips for communication. I'm always a huge proponent of communication, as you can tell, so I'm always looking for better clips. Those mic check clips that they come out with for the LEC and LCS, I'm a huge fan of those because I think that there's a lot to learn off of those. But let's get into this one real quick. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and play this through, let you guys listen, let you guys watch, and then we can kind of back it up and talk through it.
TSM now have to fend off G2.
Rumble ult, I think.
Number 2 now. Ivan!
Ivan no flash, Ivan no flash.
Ivan!
Nice. Slowly.
I can fly.
Can we hit now?
Deter G2. North America in a 5-on-4. Use the equalizer. That shockwave connects. Wild Turtle and Bioshock are forced away from the tower, and G2 continue to siege.
This is huge momentum for G2. They're inside the base.
The base towers are down. The Nexus is the focus. Sven,
Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit just because since it is a little bit of a longer clip, I want to kind of break it down and take it piece by piece. So first thing that you hear these guys communicating to one another is they're talking about the ultimates on the other team, if they have them available or not, right? Really good, really important information. Helps you understand what kind of plays you're able to make and what kind of resistance you're going to have from the opponent. They continue. They call to focus Ivern. They get the kill there. They talk about slowly, right? So if everybody's making these plays, the adrenaline gets going, and then you're like, oh, hey, we just killed a guy, right? Okay, cool, we can go all in. No, that's not always the automatic right answer, right? And so they're dictating the pace at which they want to try and take this tower. Hey, try and take it slowly. We don't have to rush it. We don't have to engage, so on and so forth. So as you can see, they're able to back out of the ultimate, bait the ultimate out. They're able to get a lot of really good chip damage from utilizing the Orianna ultimate onto TSM. They have to back off and concede because those were their carries. They don't have as much. They don't have as much damage now. Pardon me. One of them was their carry. They have to back up. They wait for the next creep wave. They're able to actually get the turret. So rather than committing on that first kill, they're able to dictate, make a better, more decisive play, and then come in and get the inhibitor. We'll pick it up from there.
Sven continues to play on the front foot. 45 seconds before Sven Skaren comes alive. G2.
Wait now, back now.
I can flash.
Chase to flash. I have redemption now. I have redemption flash. I'm on the flash.
Flashes forward. It's a flame splitter. Redemption comes down to heal up G2. And now the Nexus turns on the focus.
So many crucial flashes used here. G2 are able to get the first Nexus turret.
But Bjergsen wants to try to...
I think no. Back. No, we're on low HP. We're on low HP.
Come, play me.
Okay.
They don't need to risk it all on this play right now.
Chase.
Chase no flash. Nice.
Come on,
Harder.
Nice.
Going.
Oh my god.
Okay, cool. So obviously they end up getting the win. I love this clip for the end because one of the great things that you get to see, again, they're communicating the summoner spells, right? Who has flash, who doesn't, how they're trying to dictate and take the tower, so on and so forth. The great thing here is that you hear them call to actually back off, and they actually don't. He says to trust him, right? His teammate, I believe it's expect on Gragas. Yeah, he says, no, come, trust me. So they're all calling to back off, and like that's the great thing about this game. That's one of the things that excites me is that every different player is going to have a different perspective as to what's feasible and what's possible in any given moment in a game. And so while the teammates are saying, we're not healthy, we need to back off, so on and so forth, expect to see something different. He sees an opportunity and he's like, no, trust me. Now, could this have gone wrong? Yeah, absolutely. You see situations like that all the time. But this is a team that they work together, they coordinated together, they believe in one another, right? And so he says, hey, stay with me, no, trust me, watch. And so he's able to call Jace. Jace gets caught out because he knows that he has flash. He knows that he can flash E and stop the Jace and that they can actually get the kill, and that's the kill that leads to another kill, and then that it leads to the end of the game. And so it's these types of communication patterns, of trust, of so on and so forth, that you have to establish with your team to be able to make big plays like this and to really be on the same page with one another. So, again, really great clip of effective communication and of trust overall for a good team. And then one thing that I always like to touch on is that communicating through the game, it's always going to change depending on the phase of it. So what the focal point looks like is going to shift. What you're trying to call out, the objectives, the things that are important, it's going to alter from the early to the mid to the late game. Another massive important piece of it, though, that some people undervalue or some people don't think about, be it solo queue or be it in a team environment, is champion select. The last thing that you want to run into is where you're in champion select and you don't know what you're going to pick and it's last second and you just end up panic picking. And it's not something that synergizes well with the team composition, and you're not actually able to, at least have a fighting chance because the team composition wasn't what it could have been had you guys gone into it in a plan out manner and known what the objective was, know what the intent was of that team composition. So with that, we can transfer over to playing around neutral objectives. So what are the neutral objectives, of course? So Dragons, Elder Dragon, Rift Herald, and Baron Nashor. One that I think that not everybody always perceives as a neutral objective just because it's a little bit more minor, is Scuttle Crab. But I think that Scuttle Crab's definitely one that can be considered a neutral objective, but it's in more of the early phases of the game, right? You get a decent amount of money, you get a decent amount of XP, you get the movement speed boost for potential ganks, but it can be a neutral objective that, you know, junglers want to contest, and I think that it's important to be able to keep that in mind. Beyond that, effective communication, it ties in perfectly to this because it's necessary for every part of the game, but it's definitely necessary for being able to try and coordinate correctly on how you can successfully take a neutral objective. So I think that in addition to that, assessing in real time if you can or can't successfully take that neutral objective, that's just one of those things that it's going to come with a lot of exposure to the game. So you're just going to have to repeatedly play, you're going to have to encounter the scenarios, and then you'll have to, you know, learn from those scenarios. What was the outcome? Why was the outcome beneficial? Why was it not? So that you can learn what's feasible and what's possible based on a lot of different scenarios, which, again, we're going to jump to right now. So whenever you're trying to take these neutral objectives, things that you want to consider are, you know, team opponent and power spikes. Are you more of an early game team? Are you more of a late game team? What's their situation? What does that look like? What does the vision control situation look like? Well, if, you know, they have control wards all over the map and they have complete visibility and you have nothing, it's probably not a good time to go try and take a neutral objective, or at least coordinate being able to take their vision away. Wave management. Definitely going to get to that here in the in-game side of things and how that can affect everybody as far as taking neutral objectives. Who's winning, who's losing the lane, and then odd number fights. You know, if you guys are 4v5 or if you guys are 5v4, that's definitely going to impact the decision making of should we even try to consider taking this. If you're in the 5v4 scenario, yeah, you probably have pretty good odds, unless it's, of course, assuming that you know, people are just out of position, so it actually is a 4v4, and, you know, your top laner doesn't have teleport or something like that. But if you're in the 4v5 scenario, same thing. If they're out of position, great, you can probably contest it. If not, you probably don't want to take a 4v5 fight, because it's probably not going to end up too well, unless you just have a very fed carry or something of that nature. So, with that, let's jump into game. Let's go through a few scenarios, shall we? You guys know I'm picking Lee Sin at this point, so
Your will.
I think we could stick with that for runes and masteries. That's fine. Why not? Yeah, man. If I was playing the game, I probably would take Conqueror. You're completely right. I just didn't feel like doing it. Is everybody having a happy Valorant launch day? Is anybody watching at all? It's been some exciting hype around that game for sure.
It will not hold back.
Cool. Let's buy a few items. Sure, why not? Great. So we're gonna fast forward just a little bit. One of the first few things that I want to go over with you guys is basically wave management priority. So what we talked about is, you know, let's say we're trying to take Dragon. If I have priority, meaning my wave is pushed, if you guys aren't familiar with that, I'm able to move and rotate, right? So if I'm the mid laner and my jungler really wants to take Dragon, well, having priority, meaning that their mid laner has to stay over here and they are going to try to take this creep wave because they need the CS, right? They need to get stronger, they need to get the income, so on and so forth. They're probably not going to be able to contest if you can actually shove this wave in. Versus if you don't have priority, and let's say that, you know, it shoves into you, you're going to have a lot harder time trying to actually rotate and help the jungler. Now, this is a responsibility on both individuals, so if we're specifically talking about mid lane, or if we're specifically talking about the jungler, it's the mid laner's job to say, hey, you know, I don't have priority, I can't come, I can't help, you know, backping the jungler. At the same time, the jungler needs to not just come over and start doing dragon, right? Because that's the expectation that, oh, well, hey, my mid laner is going to show up. Well, have you taken a look at where your mid laner's wave is? If the mid laner has been shoved in and they have 2 waves accumulating into the tower, and there's a cannon minion, there's no way that it's feasible for the mid laner to leave. It's just not possible. Same thing. If bottom is shoved in, they're not going to be able to rotate. So that's not going to be a good opportunity for you to actually try and take the dragon control. What you're going to want to do is try and set up another play. Just wait, maybe help them clear lane, see what the scenario is from there. There's a lot of variables that can take place as to what the decision making should be, but ultimately probably not a good time for you to actually try and take dragon at that point. So another thing to keep in mind is that as you're looking to take these take dragons, take baron, take scuttle crab, take Rift Herald, whatever it may be, definitely keep in mind the handy new features that they've implemented over the past couple of years as far as the timers up here that you see at the top. Back in the day, not to make myself sound old and outdated, but back in the day, it was all a matter of you had to keep it in your mind, you had to time stamp it in chat, you had to keep up with that. That was, you know, somebody's job or multiple people's job to be able to actually remember that. Now you have all these great timers to actually be able to track this information, right? So as far as Rift Herald goes, you know, there were some changes this past season, or at the start of this last season. So it spawns every 8 minutes. It respawns in 6 minutes, so you have the opportunity to actually take 2 Rift Heralds. And then if it's actually in combat, it'll stick around for an extra 10 seconds, so normally goes away at 19:45 in time for Baron to spawn, but if it's in combat, it'll actually stay around until 19:55, I think it is. And then Baron spawns at 20 minutes. Of course, dragons, the initial spawns at 5 minutes, spawns every 5 minutes. The big change, again, this season, is that Elder Dragon actually only spawns after you get 5 souls. Or after you get the Dragon Soul, rather. So 4 dragons, and then getting the 5th for the Dragon Soul. Elder actually doesn't spawn until after that, and it gets the buff. Hey, that's perfect timing. Cool. So Dragon just spawned. Gonna go ahead and take it real quick. Cool. So it shows up. One thing to keep in mind is that, you know, with how strong they made Elder Dragon, with the execute on the buff, I mean, it's extremely strong, right? But I think that a lot of people feel like they have to get every single dragon. And so this goes into the conversation that we talked about as far as, you know, your team or the opponent's power spikes. Something to keep in mind is that, let's say that, you know, you're a very early game team, you're an early to mid game team, you have to try and win early as much as possible. Well, you're going to want to try and get these dragons as much as possible, make sure that you're set up accordingly so that you can get as strong as possible, as quickly as possible. They're also going to help you scale a little bit by being able to get these dragons. At the same time, let's say that you're more of a late game team and that you're not really able to contest these dragons as early, right? Maybe they're ahead in kills, they've got a tower or 2, they're CSing really well, whatever the situation may be, they're just too strong for you to contest it right now. It's okay to give up a dragon or 2 in the early game if you know that you scale into the late game. So I don't think that people should sacrifice so much to, oh, we have to absolutely get every single dragon. Try and, you know, assess the situation a little bit more. Hey, would love to take this dragon, but realistically, is it better for us to play it safe? Do we have to contest this? Is it okay for us to give it up? That is a part of the strategy, is that you can give those up for the sake of being able to maintain a break even or maintain a lead, just making sure that you don't get too far behind. Because in theory, if you do scale into the late game, you're going to be able to, you know, be substantially stronger and win that late game if the game goes into that point. You just need to make sure that you don't get too far behind and that you don't throw the game early. Let's see. Vision control is another piece that we should talk about. You know, I think that the vision control, I think, goes hand in hand with the actual communication piece. So trying to set up, hey, let's say that, you know, this timer's a little bit lower. Hey, you know what? We can actually make it a little bit lower. So dragon's going to come up. We're working on it. Cool. hey guys, Dragon's coming up in a minute 15. We really need to try and get vision control around it so that we can get set up for it, right? So let's say I'm on the blue side. Okay, well, let's look at, where some of the popular places are to ward. If we see their mid laner, right, he's there, so we know we can be a little bit more aggressive. Let's try and get a ward here. We can try and get a ward there. Obviously, all these wards aren't going to come from one single person. But trying to keep vision of these choke points as to where they're going to try and come in and contest. If we know their bot lane is in lane, right? Maybe this is an ideal scenario for you guys. Dragon's coming up in 40 seconds. We have a huge wave that's going to be pushing into their tower. Bot lane either has to give it up and come contest Dragon, or they're going to have to actually take that wave. That's a really good scenario for us if they have to take the wave, right? That's basically guaranteeing that we're not going to have two people coming and trying to contest. At the same time, again, hey guys, Dragon's coming up. We really need to try and get these, get vision of their jungle, get vision wherever we can. Have we swept or have we cleared out Dragon Pit with vision control wards to make sure that they don't have vision on it, right? Making sure that there's counterplay there, that you're removing their visibility, that they can't even see you potentially contesting it or doing it. Those are all big pieces of the puzzle of being able to take these neutral objectives. Same thing goes hand in hand with Herald. Same thing goes hand in hand with Baron. Making sure that you have the vision control lines, and again, communicating to that team. To your team that not everybody's psychic, right? They may know that, hey, that's what they're supposed to do. They may not be keeping track of the timer and the fact that Dragon's coming up. So a friendly reminder of, hey, let's work on getting this vision control before Dragon comes up. That's always helpful. It's always helpful to be able to remind people of that and try and work on that together. And then winning and losing lanes, like we talked about, of course. Let's say that, your team is pushed in and maybe they're 0-3, 0-4 cumulatively in the bot lane. It's probably not going to be the best time, because obviously you have an inherent loss from the bot lane currently. That means that their bot lane's stronger. Probably not going to be a good situation where you want to actually try and take an objective from that standpoint. So with that, I think that some things to try and work on is just trying to communicate better in general. Lose the toxicity, lose the the difficult, tense conversations, the derogatory commentary. Definitely try and remove that from your arsenal of things that you currently do. Try and just be a little bit more calm, and we're going to go into some of those things in one of the future advanced lessons where we're talking about kind of external factors and working on mental health and focus and things of that nature. But just trying to communicate more in general, be it pinging things if you don't like to type. The great thing is that you can ping literally everything, right? So you can ping your ultimate, you can ping flash, you can ping, hey, I don't have smite, my smite's on cooldown, whatever it may be. Trying to communicate in some fashion, way, shape, form, or fashion with your team and explain to them what you can do, what you can't do, as well as what you need from your team. Hey, I need a gank in my lane right now, right? Hey, I really think that we should try and set up for Dragon. You don't have to be the jungler to say that you should set up for Dragon, just to clarify. There are some junglers out there with not the best awareness, so it's okay to help them too, and help them, keep track of the neutral objectives and what you should be doing. The thing is that everybody communicates at a different level, so ultimately it's very natural for some people, and for others it's not as natural. And I think that it's just a matter of time and repetition of doing it to actually get to that point where you do feel comfortable. You've done it enough, you feel confident in what you're doing, and just keeping at it, basically. And then beyond that, again, trying to remember the neutral timers. Like I said, it's not just a jungler thing. I've coached and worked with plenty of people that they play mid lane, they play support, whatever it may be, and they're very good and very well aware of neutral objective timers, of ward timers, of vision control patterns, things of that nature. So just trying to remember all of those timers, and it is a lot of multitasking, but that is something that, it's going to help you get to that next level of play by doing. So, with that, I think that we can kind of pause there. One of the things that I want to make sure that I give some time to is that somebody asked me a question, like I said last session, and they asked, what was my take on the meta? And I don't get to, play on a day-to-day basis as much as I coach, and so I went and I did a lot of due diligence over the weekend, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, if that person is here today, that they get their question answered, but maybe somebody else has that question too. So one of the things that I should have asked is, you know, is the meta that you're asking about, are you talking about solo queue meta, or are you talking about team environment meta? Because typically what I study and what I focus on is working and coaching teams. As far as the solo queue meta, so to speak, I really think that I'm a firm believer in that you could pretty much use anything as long as you're good at it, as long as you're good with the other aspects of the game, to probably get to Challenger. I don't think that, or at least get to Master. I don't think that, you know, necessarily there's a solo queue meta. I think that it's a matter of trained and untrained, and just working on your individual play, your game awareness, and things of that nature. So, having said that, you know, I think that there's a lot of things in this current meta that are likely to change for summer, and so I also don't focus on the spring split as much, because it tends to not be as competitive as the summer split because of how things for Worlds are structured. So, for example, if you guys watched all of spring split, I really wouldn't be surprised to see Team Liquid come back and do really well in summer. You know, everybody's focused on qualifying for Worlds, so I think that a lot of things are going to change, but with the current meta, with the current meta, I think that it's very Juggernaut and Bruiser-ish, as we've probably seen across a lot of games. Some strong champions, in case you guys are interested, that I wanted to make sure that you are aware of: Wukong, Ornn, Renekton, Aatrox, Set, Trundle, Lee Sin, Sejuani, Yuumi, Tahm Kench, Senna, Aphelios. There's a lot more, but those are a few that I saw that kind of stood out as one of the main ones. And one of the things that I also wanted to bring up as well is that if you look at a lot of the AD carries that are being played, things like Senna, which with the recent patch, you know, we'll see. I think everybody's still trying to feel out if Senna is going to be as effective as she has been previously. But with Senna, with Aphelios, with Misfortune, you notice that they're all kind of immobile, and that there's a decent amount of Tahm Kench being played. Well, I think that depending on where Tahm Kench sits, if he's strong or if he's mediocre, that his kit of being able to kind of rescue and save immobile supports, I think that plays really well into the meta, and so you'll notice that there's a decent amount of that being played because of the Bruiser and the Juggernaut meta. They're able to dive, right? They're able to do a ton of damage and still be tanky. They're able to be aggressive on those squishier mobile ADCs, and so having Tahm Kench is definitely one of the ways where you can help mitigate that and help actually save those immobile ADCs, supposing that they are caught out or that there is a really aggressive flash play made onto them. It is really helpful. As somebody touched on in chat, shame on you for not taking Conquer. Conquer's extremely strong right now with a lot of champions. That synergizes really well with the Bruiser / Juggernaut meta, so that works really well. And then as we talked about with the current state of Dragon, with Elder Dragon and everything, that being as strong as it is, being able to prioritize and try to get those early dragons, being able to try to get early bot ganks, is extremely helpful. Not always feasible, right, as we kind of touched on, but that is something that is extremely helpful with the current state of things. So, with that, guys, I do want to turn it over to y'all. I do want to let you guys ask questions, make sure that you know, if there's any outlying information, that we definitely get that answered. As last time, though, don't forget, before you head out, there is going to be a survey that's linked in the stream before it ends. Make sure and fill the survey out. We had our first session for the developmental camp last week. We'll have our second session on this Thursday. This is our first for the competitive camp. We'll have our second one next Tuesday. If you guys will fill that survey out, not only do we use the feedback because we want to improve, make it more valuable for you guys and your experience, you get a chance to win some RP, right? So who doesn't love skins and free stuff? So if you will take the time to fill that survey out before you leave, we really appreciate that. But with that, please feel free to ask questions. Don't be bashful. I'm here to answer anything that you guys have. Is it possible to be able to play every role and every champion to climb? So I think that what you'll find is that you will stretch yourself pretty thin. And this goes back to kind of the concept of like what's meta and what's not. Sure, I mean there are a lot of really obscure things. Yeah, I remember seeing a few seasons ago somebody was like, yeah, I'm a master or challenger player and I play like AD only or something like that. There are a few things that like that person's level of knowledge of how to play that champion in that scenario, as well as their game awareness, is clearly really good. But can you play every single champion in every role and climb? You're probably going to struggle a bit. I think that at some point you will stop climbing, and it depends on how far you want to climb. If you're talking about climbing to challenger, it's probably not going to be an optimal scenario for you. If you're talking about climbing to platinum or diamond, yeah, you can probably play every champion in every position and climb if you're proficient enough with it and if you put enough time into it. Solo queue coin flip. Um, so here's my answer to that: is that years ago I saw this statistic that I think I'm pretty sold on. Is that 33% of your games are guaranteed loss, 33% of your games are guaranteed win, and 33% of your games are up to you. And I think that's probably pretty accurate. Is that, yeah, there are some games that you are just going to inevitably lose. Of course, you go and you see Dopa in Korea or Apto, whatever you want to refer to him as. You see him and he has an 80% win rate. Well, the guy is who he is and he's very good at what he does. But realistically, there are some games that they're unwinnable. There's a reason he has an 80% win rate, not a 100% win rate, right? And so I think that, striving for a 55 or a 60% win rate is very fair. I think that's very good. But yeah, sadly, sometimes it can be a little bit of a coin flip. Not the most reassuring thing to hear, but it's not always easy, right? And some games you just have to earn. That's part of ranking up, is that you have to put in the time and you have to be consistent with your play. Do I think that Tyler 1 is going to get to Challenger transitioning from ADC to jungler? I think he can. I think that it's a matter of time and commitment. I honestly thought that he already had, but I don't pay too much attention to that. But I thought I had seen some YouTube video somewhere or something that he had already. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think that, again, if you've gotten a challenger before, it's just a matter of you understand the game at a higher level, right? And so you're able to translate a lot of that knowledge and a lot of that information. You're just having to adopt new information and take that in and apply it to what you know. So I think that it's possible for sure. Thoughts on the upcoming changes to Duo XP, early ganks, and Camp XP, and how they pertain to the jungle meta. I honestly haven't read the new upcoming changes at all. So what is are they increasing the Camp XP or decreasing it? Duo XP decreased early game. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely going to be a negative impact for it. I mean, if they're decreasing the XP, it's going to put the jungler behind, right? So it's definitely going to put a hindrance on that. An increase. Okay, so the early game is nerfed basically, and then increase Camp XP mid to late game. Will it be significant? I mean. My headset cut out. Sorry about that. Will it be significant enough to shift the meta? It could. Yeah. I mean, it absolutely could. But it's speculation, right? So I'm not entirely for sure on the percentages, on the amounts, so on and so forth. So I'd have to look into that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they're going to shift it to where it's, you're getting decreased XP in the early game, and then it's going to be up in the mid game, yeah, I can definitely shift how you're going to have to play around that early game, what you're capable of doing to make sure that you're maintaining proper leveling in comparison to the laners and so on and so forth. So I'm definitely interested to look into it whenever it goes live and see how it impacts it. Do you think the jungle is the best role in the game? I mean, I'm biased towards jungle. Does that mean I think it's the best role in the game? In all honesty, I love watching really good assassin players. So I love watching really good Zed players, really good LeBlanc players, stuff like that. I think that it's super flashy and it's really exciting. I would love for Vayne to be more meta again. I love, like, back in the day watching really good Vayne players from, Vayne spotting and dodging, stuff like that. So, but I think that jungle is the best position in the game. I mean, I like it, but it's not for everybody. I think that, everybody's different, and that's the great thing about the game is that different positions, different play styles, different champions suit different people. You guys don't have to be shy. Y'all can ask as many questions as you want. We got time. What do you think would be the? What do I think the best jungler in this meta would be? I mean, I think that you see a lot of popular ones, right? And so I think that the best is you're kind of splitting hairs because there's a lot of really effective junglers out there right now. You see Trundle, you see Sejuani, you see Lee Sin, so on and so forth. So, I mean, I think that those three are especially effective right now. In case you weren't here for the session last Tuesday, I'm super biased. Lee Sin's my favorite champion. Here you go. There you go. I'm super biased towards Lee Sin, just because I love the champion, I love the kit, I love the play style of it. But at the same time, do I think that he's the most effective, most broken jungler? I think that everybody thinks situational. That's why the champion select piece of the game is an entirely different phase of the game, right? Is that you have to look at what you're trying to do with your team composition, and you have to look at what the other team is trying to do with theirs. Sometimes it's a really suitable pick, sometimes it's not. Do you think that Carol Baskin from the break? I haven't watched that show, to be honest. I am trying to hold out and be the last human being left that has not watched that show. Do I think that Muay Thai Lee Sin is the best Lee Sin skin? Yes, I do. I am a fan of that one, hence why I have that one. At the same time, I'm a big fan of the boxing one as well, and I think it's like traditional Lee Sin. I think I own every single Lee Sin skin on my main account. But if you guys have any questions that aren't around my obsession of Lee Sin and anything that I want to answer questions that you guys struggle with. I mean, I have fun talking with y'all, but at the same time, what are some issues that you guys struggle with? How can I help you guys climb? How can I help you provide information to you guys that you really feel like you need? When would be a good time to dodge in solo queue? Man, that's a good question. And I think that with the penalties that they're bringing up, if they're gonna launch that, it makes it a little rough because dodging in solo queue, I do agree that there is some tact and some strategy to it, right? You just see everybody saying, it's better than to dodge and lose a few than to play the game out where you're gonna lose 20. Sad truth of the matter is we talked a little bit about toxicity, right? And there are plenty of people out there that they'll hold a League of Legends lobby hostage. And it's really sad to see. It's really frustrating to see because it's like, hey, I don't value the time that you're putting into this game of trying to climb, so I only care about what I care about. I think that, having said that, that's a really good time to dodge, is that whenever you encounter people like that they're trying to be toxic. They're, I'm gonna, if you know who Disco Nunu is, they're gonna go Disco Nunu, run it down mid, and just end. Situations like that, I think are definitely good times to dodge. Whenever somebody's gonna play an off meta pick, I think that's hit or miss. Going back to the ADR thing I talked about earlier, right? Look them up. There's so many, the Lawlytics, op.gg, whatever it may be, or not Lawlytics, sorry, that's good for builds, but op.gg, right? Go look up their player profile. If they're really proficient in it, if they have over a 50% win rate and they're playing something that you're not familiar with, but they feel confident in it, that person could end up carrying you, you know? So I think that that's hit or miss. Look and see how successful they are and then judge it off of that. Good question. So, in League of Legends drafts, some coaches are frequently criticized by fans. Yes, absolutely. How much of the draft is decided by players/coaches, and how influential are coaches when compared to individual skill of the players? So, I think that on the piece of how much of the draft is decided by players/coaches, I think that it's a team effort, right? Like, that's what practice accumulates to, is trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, what people's strong suits are, how they can work as a team. That's how you come up with, really sneaky things like support Misfortune many years ago, or AD Kennen and stuff like that, right? Those are the really sneaky strategies that you come up with together as a team, and those are decided on by the team. Same thing regularly, right? Is as a coach, you're kind of judging what a player is proficient in. You may really like playing something in matches, but if you have a 0% win rate and you don't really do that well with it, it's probably not a good idea for the coach to let you play that. And so in an ideal world, it's a joint effort between the coach and between the player. Now, I know that those dynamics don't exist across the board in professional League of Legends, I can tell you that. But in an ideal world, the coach and the players are working together to formulate these things. With the assistant coach, with the strategic coach, whoever it may be, you're working as a collective unit to be able to come up with the best scenario together. How influential are coaches when compared to the individual skill of players? I think very influential. I think that if they weren't influential, they wouldn't exist, right? But it's really hard. Excuse me, my voice is giving out. It's really hard as a player to, whenever you're involved in the game, whenever you're in the moment, whenever you're reacting, sometimes it's hard to step back and to be able to view what your own mistakes are, right? Because you're so obsessed with performing really well that it can be difficult. And so I think that that's one of the helpful things of the coach, is being able to view everything objectively, right? As a coach, you should really only want what's best for your players and for your team. And so you're trying to guide them to that. And so I think that, yeah, absolutely, coaches are extremely influential whenever it comes to players. But again, there's no reason for a coach to undermine a player, for a player to undermine a coach. You all should have the same unified objective, right? You want to win together, and you want to do it correctly. What is the best way to get into the LCS? Go to epa.gg. No. Realistically, I think that you need to set your expectations of, is that what you want? Because I've dealt with a great many players in the past that they think that they want to get into the LCS. They think that they want to be a pro player. But you need to have a realistic conversation with yourself of like, hey, I understand that it's not just all the on-stage time, right? That there's a lot of work that goes into it behind the scenes that I have to put in. And the stage time is a reflection of a lot of off-screen time that you put into the hundreds and thousands of hours of work that you put into it. As far as how to get there, I think that, step one is trying to climb the ladder, right? I think that getting into Challenger is a baseline. I had to plug my headset in because every time I haven't had any audio or anything for a long time, it'll turn off. But I think that for the baseline level to entry is trying to climb to Challenger. Now, having said that, the team component plays a big deal in it, right? Because the way that I view things is that the Challenger scene in solo queue is a really good platform for you to work on you as a person individually, for your champion picks, for your mechanics, for your awareness, things of that nature, all these individualized fundamentals. But the team component, that helps you interact with the team, right? It helps you learn how to communicate, how to be a leader, how to shot call, how to operate effectively together, and how to bring everybody together. So I think that there's two different components of it. If you can play with teams, great, but not everybody has a group of people or a team that they can play with. So that takes a lot of effort. You got to put the time in, then you start scrimmaging, then you start playing in matches, then you start playing in tournaments, and you do that concurrently with solo queue, right? And so I think that the combination of those two is once you reach Challenger, once you're on a team and you're ingrained in the scene, you're going to get noticed. You're going to be able to play in amateur tournaments or semi-pro tournaments, however you want to refer to them, and then you're going to be able to hopefully get noticed for scouting grounds, go compete in that, and then get drafted. With that, I think we got time for a few more questions. So please, if you have any questions out there, please make sure you get them asked. What would be the best way to climb to Challenger? It's really hard to blanket statement that. I think that every person is different. So there's going to be people. I always like to give the example of, let's say that you're looking at a platinum player, right, or a group of platinum players. Well, some people may have a really toxic attitude. They're a terrible teammate, but their mechanics are just insane to the point of, that's why they're in platinum. You could look at another person, maybe their mechanics are mediocre. And so maybe they're mediocre, but, their ability to lead a team and to communicate and to call objectives and to be able to actually have the good awareness in a game, that's going to be a little bit different of the scenario than the mechanical person. And so those two different people both want to climb, but they have different things to work on, right? And so I think that it's trying to first assess where you have difficulty. Is, what are my pain points? Where am I having difficulty? Where am I struggling to be able to climb? And then from that point, try to start working on those things. You guys are shy. The developmental camp was much louder. They asked a lot more questions. You guys are getting one upped. Again, guys, we're probably about to wrap things up. So please make sure that you fill out that survey. Again, free RP, right? Who doesn't love free RP? Appreciate you guys making time to be here today with me. And then if you will stay tuned next Tuesday. We'll be having, like I said, our next session. If you want to also come to the developmental sessions, Thursday we're going to be covering understanding champions and champion mastery. No, I don't mean flashing your cool emote champion mastery. I mean actually having champion mastery because you are proficient in the champion. So we're going to cover things, like getting comfort on champions, animation and cast canceling, things of that nature. So please make sure and stay tuned and join us for that. And if you have any questions, feel free to submit them in the survey as well. And we look forward to talking with you again in the next session. Thanks, guys.